What if you'll never be enough? Not really. Echoes every time you try to grow. Zuko doesn't just carry a scar, he carries that voice. And like many of us, he mistakes it for truth. Zuko's story begins long before we meet him, before the chase, the banishment, the blue fire. His real story begins in the quiet corners of his childhood, in the moments when he reached for love and found performance instead, when he looked up at a father and saw a tyrant, when he sat beside his sister and felt like a ghost. That's what invisible weight looks like early on. Not bruises, but expectations. Not screams, but silence. A slow erosion of self until you start to believe that love must be earned and failure means exile. Some kids learn early that their worth is conditional, and when you grow up like that, being praised only when you're perfect, punished when you're real, you don't grow straight. You twist yourself into shapes that will win approval, bending around the silence, the tension, the threat. That kind of childhood doesn't just wound, it warps. And guess what? There's no bonus prize for being emotionally flexible, just back pain and trust issues. You stop asking, what do I love? And start asking, what will keep me safe? And so you become high achieving, or invisible, or angry, or all three. You play the role that pleases them, even if it hollows you out. Zuko did that. That's why he wasn't just hurt, he was broken. Not beyond repair, but broken in the way that turns love into currency and identity into armor. That's Zuko. He wasn't born broken, he was taught to fracture. And that fracture, it never really goes away. It hides beneath the armor, beneath the mission, beneath the fire. Zuko thinks if he captures the Avatar, his father will welcome him home. But that's the tragedy. Home, for Zuko, never meant safety. It meant proving himself to someone who made him bleed just to test his loyalty. He doesn't want power, he wants peace. But in the Fire Nation, those two things are never the same. So he chases what he thinks will make him whole. Approval. We've all done that, haven't we? Chased grades, applause, attention. The kind of success that tastes like survival, not joy. Because if you carry invisible weight, success isn't celebration, it's permission to breathe. But here's where Zuko becomes more than a fallen prince. He becomes familiar. Because the thing that shatters him isn't defeat, it's confusion. Maybe you did it through perfect grades, or staying quiet at dinner. Maybe you became the funny one, the achiever, the one who never cried. Maybe you kept a list in your head of everything they liked, and trimmed yourself down to fit it. And maybe, like Zuko, you told yourself, once I earn it, once I prove myself, then I'll be okay. But it never really comes, does it? The moment when you finally feel enough. Not if your whole sense of worth is built on someone else's silence. When he finally gets what he thought he wanted, his father's approval, his old life back. It feels wrong, hollow, like wearing someone else's skin. You can almost hear the silence in him, the stillness before everything breaks. The kind of silence that doesn't ask for permission, it just leaves you undone. That moment, that's sacred, that's the pivot point. That's when survival gives way to self-awareness. Invisible weight isn't always lifted by triumph. Sometimes it's unraveled by doubt. And Zuko starts to ask questions most people are too afraid to ask. What if I've been wrong? What if the path back is actually a path forward? What if honor isn't something given, but something chosen? Zuko's transformation isn't magical, it's agonizing. He breaks down, he lashes out, he isolates, he doubts his every instinct. Because when you're broken, even goodness feels dangerous. You don't trust kindness, because what if it's a trick? You second guess every emotion, especially joy. Zuko wants to be loved, but he flinches when it's offered. He wants to do good, but his instincts were forged in survival, not safety. That's the heartbreak of healing. It's not just learning how to act differently. It's learning how to believe differently. To believe that you're not too much, not too late, not too broken to belong. Because growth isn't glamorous, it's grief. It's mourning the person you thought you had to be, the story you clung to for safety, the armor that kept you alive but not whole. And Zuko mourns, quietly, often alone, carrying the invisible weight of legacy, shame, and longing. That's what makes his story so powerful. He doesn't just change sides, he changes souls. And not by becoming someone new, but by remembering who he was before the world taught him to forget. Here's the mythic core of Zuko's journey. Fire that learns to warm, not destroy. Rage that becomes resolve. Shame that becomes wisdom. He begins as a boy cast out. He becomes a man who can stand beside others. without needing to stand above them. Think about that. How many people gain power and still choose humility? How many are taught that strength means dominance, but learn that true strength is choosing tenderness, even when it's terrifying? That's Zuko. And yet, he's not perfect. He stumbles, misreads, tries too hard, says the wrong thing, hurts the people he's trying to help, because that's what healing looks like. It's awkward, uneven, human. It's apologizing not with words, but with actions, again and again, because nothing says, "I've changed," like quietly overcompensating for the next 3 years. It's saying, "I care what she thinks," because you know that trust is something you earn by sitting beside someone in their pain, not trying to fix it. The invisible weight Zuko carries never fully disappears. That's the truth Avatar dares to tell. Healing isn't erasure, it's integration. He still carries the scar, still hears the voice, still feels the ache of a father who never saw him. But he learns not to let those things define him. He learns to carry them, not become them. That's the quiet miracle of healing. Not that you forget the fire, but that you stop fearing it. You feel it differently. You learn when to let it blaze, and when to let it flicker low. Zuko doesn't become light in spite of his darkness. He becomes light because he faced it. The scar stays, but now it speaks a different story, not of shame, of survival, of having walked through fire and still choosing to build. That's what real power is. Not domination, not control, but the courage to stand in your full story, unhidden. To say, "This is what I've been through, and I'm still here." And that's freedom. Zuko teaches us something rare, that redemption isn't a destination. It's a discipline, a quiet daily act of returning to your values, even when your past tries to drag you back. And he becomes the Fire Lord not because he's the strongest, but because he knows what power without empathy can do. He's lived it, he's bled from it, and now he builds something better, not because he forgot, but because he remembered. If you've ever felt like your past disqualifies you from peace, if you've ever mistaken rage for purpose, if you've ever longed for approval from someone who made you question your worth, then Zuko's story is not just fiction, it's reflection. He reminds us that broken people don't stay broken. They grow, slowly, unevenly, beautifully. He reminds us that even if your story began in fire, it can end in light. Because Zuko doesn't just overcome his past, he learns to live with it. He doesn't pretend the scar isn't there, he just stops letting it speak first. And maybe that's what we're all learning to do, to show up broken, to keep walking anyway, to let our story change shape, even if it still aches sometimes. Because the bravest thing you can be isn't perfect, it's present. You are not weak for being wounded. You are not broken for having scars. You are not unworthy because you've stumbled. You're just human. And like Zuko, you get to choose what to do next. Because the truth is, we all carry invisible weight. A scar no one sees, a voice that won't go quiet, a version of ourselves we're still trying to outrun. But like Zuko, we can turn that weight into wisdom. We can let our fire illuminate instead of incinerate. We can write new endings to old stories, even if the original draft was a survival script. Messy, jagged, written in the dark. And we can remind ourselves, again and again, that redemption isn't given, it's chosen. If Zuko's story felt like yours, hit like and subscribe. We carry the weight together here.